Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. All right. So anyway, so that we're the the name of the course is Unconditional Love, and what we're really going to talk about here in the course is Krishna Prema, and or the love of Krishna, and that's that's the highest form, the only probably true form of truly unconditional love. And but what I want to do is and this is like the it's Krishna's highest level of being, his highest level of his own realization of self. It's what he has given his life and soul to. He has all other options, and but yet he's given himself to that, and that gift has been given to us. Down through through Krishna, through Lord Chaitanya, through Prabhupada, we've been given this opportunity to participate in that. And so it's so much better than any other possible thing. And so I thought but in order to try to understand it, um, I wanted to talk about also just about what unconditional love looks like here in this plane. Because what happens is that when we describe transcendence, we oftentimes use the same words that we use to describe things here on this plane. And the dynamics in the spiritual plane are so much different than they are here that sometimes that there's a loss in translation. So I thought we'll take a look first at kind of unconditional love. I don't know if we can have truly unconditional love in this plane, but we can. There's a whole many gradations of that, and look at how that works in this plane, and then contrast that with the different dynamics in the spiritual world, and hopefully we can get a little better grasp of that. And so today, we'll look at some of these dynamics, and then what I want to focus on in the other sessions is how do we move in that direction? Because there's a certain way that happens, because there's different types of there's so many different types of spiritual destinations available even for devotees in certain situations. But if we want to have this prema, and especially the type of prema that's there in Vrindavan, there's a certain way that we need to approach it. And so I think we want to talk about some of the ways that can happen, and how we go from, because we don't just go. Oftentimes the unconditional love is in the definition of bhakti. Rupa Goswami gives that definition of bhakti, anya bilashita shunyam, that's without any motivation other than trying to please Krishna. And so many times, almost all the time, when people see that definition, they think they can just go there. Okay. I want to be completely unmotivated. Well, wanting to do is a good thing, but being able to be in our condition is quite a different story. And it doesn't happen just by intellectual understanding. There's a way that begins to awaken, and a path, a certain thing that allows that to happen. And if and so we need to try to understand that, and how we become less and less motivated, how we can accomplish, finally attain this most precious gift that's being offered to us. So anyway, we'll start. And so first of all, let's take a look at just the definition of love, because this is a complicated thing that we have to begin with. In fact, when you say that love is our goal, some people will be kind of disappointed at that, because love is oftentimes seems to be so painful in this plane, right? You have the whole you have this whole genre of popular music, the blues, talking about how love is such a terrible thing. So I want to contrast love with desire, because usually what's happening when things are painful is that there's desire. In the third chapter of the Gita, in one of the purports, where Arjuna asks Krishna, he says, what is it that causes me, causes us to act in ways that we don't want to. Almost, sometimes we're forced into acting in ways that we don't really want to, and acting inappropriately. What forces us? And Krishna says it's the power of desire, kama. And the purport Prabhupada says that when we enter into this dimension, our love, our prema turns into kama. And so a lot of what we call love here is desire. And so we appreciate, right, the benefit that others may have to us. Like there's a little proverb that says the fox loves the chicken all the way down to the tail feathers. So the welfare of the chicken is not considered. It's good food for the fox, and that's it. And so many times, what we love is something that brings us something, brings us some pleasure, brings us some joy, brings us some happiness. And that's what we're really attached to. And hopefully we're not like the fox and we have no appreciation for the person. Usually that triggers some appreciation also for the person. But if the what we're receiving remains primary, then it's easily broken. That's why you have, when relationships break up, or when people don't, your friends or your family or your romantic partner, your wife doesn't treat you right, then the relationship can break. Prabhupada mentions this thing. There's in one of the purports he has in some of the audio recordings where Prabhupada is singing bhajans and he gives a purport. There's one where he says that this is the difference between Radha and Krishna and love here in this world, is that Radha and Krishna, the love never breaks. He says even when there seems to be cause, it never breaks. But here in this world, it breaks. And that's because there's desire here, personal selfish desire. That I'm getting something I need from that, and when that's not there, deal is off. And my regard for you, greatly diminishes. And then the on the other hand, love is the genuine appreciation and concern for the welfare of the other. That's really what love is. It's not something that's connected with what you're receiving. It's not connected. It's not a selfish thing. It's something that springs up, I'm using particularly the word welfare here because I'm going to distinguish that between, because sometimes when we talk about unconditional love, kind of in this dimension, we think we really have to sacrifice ourselves, or we just have to do whatever. When we hear about Krishna Prema, it says that the devotees always want to please Krishna. So here, I think in order to distinguish love from toxic things in this plane, we have to consider that we want the welfare of the other. And we'll explain that as we go along here a little bit more. So those are the two things. So when we talk about love, we're not talking about the desire, how we're having our desires fulfilled by this, but by a genuine appreciation for the object of our love. And so then I'm going to give you a kind of a definition of unconditional love that I think can work. And so that you're a well-wisher of another, and you remain a well-wisher of another, regardless of the other's actions, attitudes, towards you, or their impact on their lives. That would be truly unconditional. That regardless of how they act towards you, what they think about you, how they affect you, that you remain their well-wisher. And you'll notice that it doesn't necessarily have to mean that there's tons and tons and tons of emotional content. There may be, but it's an orientation more than it is a feeling. And feelings will oftentimes be involved, but it's an orientation that you want their benefit, you want their welfare, you're a well-wisher. It doesn't necessarily mean you want their pleasure. Okay? So we'll start with that as a definition, and then there's kind of, I was just thinking about some ways that this comes about, because it's the desire part is a lot more natural and common. So what is it that makes us come closer to, one of the things that Prabhupada would mention, that the closest thing he would think of truly unconditional love would be he would say the love of a mother for the child, meaning a good mother. And sometimes he would say a Bengali mother. Apparently, they're famous that way. And of course, he was Bengali, so maybe he was a little biased in that regard. A Bengali mother, and and so one of the things is one of the things that has is when we feel a relationship with somebody else, and I mean a connection, like an identification. And so from a mother's point of view or a parent's point of view, you feel like here's my child. I feel, and sometimes I don't have children, but what I've heard also and seen a little bit with little children is that when they're very young, they don't they're very straightforward. They just are who they are. There's no duplicity there. And so when they feel helpless and the mother is caring for them, they have this love that they shine. They feel dependent, and you're everything to them. And that makes a deep impression sometimes on the parents when they see the child just glowing in happiness when they see you, and that they're fully dependent on you, and they realize that. So it makes a deep impression. I mean, otherwise you feel a responsibility. It's my child, So it's easy in that case to put up with a lot. It's a lot, and you'll go out of your way to see that that their welfare is there. You'll suffer a lot of inconvenience and difficulty, and oftentimes they don't grow up to be so grateful or grow up the way you had intended, you know. And but that remains because you that this is my child, we're deeply connected, and so it's hard to give up those good feelings. Okay? And so that can be other things. It can be family members and other kind of ways. Some people you have a real connection and a feeling of identification with, can make you, put up with a lot, even if they're not treating you as like they should or behaving like they should. That your desire for them to be, have still to be in good, that you still want the best for them. You may have to do that from a distance, but you want what's best for them. You know, and then sometimes it's just somebody will have just certain qualities that you so deeply appreciate. Talents or something that just impresses you, so much that that somehow you want to contribute to that. So you want them to be well, so that could happen sometimes. Somebody may, maybe they're, an artist or a musician or something, or just have great qualities, and we can just admire somebody and go, wow, and so you have a situation like that where you deeply appreciate them. Sometimes you share very deep and profound experiences with people, and this happens sometimes, a lot of times in the military. Like, because if you're, especially if you're, kind of a infantry soldier or such, you and your small group depend on each other for your very lives. I've heard stories, soldiers who come back, even though the combat was, very, very traumatic and it leaves scars on them. When they come back and they see how people are acting so shallowly, that it makes them feel alien when they come back. There's like, why is everybody so superficial? Because you count on one another to keep you alive. You have to cooperate in order to stay alive. And so when you have that kind of a deep identification, usually when people win military awards, you have the Medal of Honor and things. They don't talk about being patriotic. They don't talk about being great soldiers. They talk that they didn't do anything heroic. They just were trying to save their friends, their comrades. Person was wounded and they went under fire to try to get them back. And it just was natural for them to do that because there's such a tight bond there, such a deep identification that, they'll, go through tremendous danger just to save one another because they're, because they depend upon each one another so deeply. So they when they came back, they say people have these shallow connections instead of the deep ones that they had in that place. And then there's kind of, more spiritual reasons to do it. Like you see in the Bhagavad Gita, a couple of verses here. It says this is from the 6th chapter, verse 32. He is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress, origin. So there's a natural feeling of connection with all beings. Right? And then in 5:18, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. And so when people are in the mode of goodness, when they have a little deeper connection with soul, their desires go down. You have a greater level of self-satisfaction. It's called Atmarama, deeper and deeper connection with the soul. And I think you'll notice even in your own life, if you're feeling good, if you're having a good day, you feel all right, it's very much easier for you to be sensitive to others and be giving to others and help others. But if you're having a really terrible day, you're feeling miserable, you got a headache, you maybe don't want to talk to anybody, And so this is we've got, and so those are the two different modes of nature there. When we're feeling really miserable, we feel needy, but there's more desire and less giving. And so persons who are of a more spiritual level, it says in high levels of mode of goodness, it says the only distress people feel is that they see other people are suffering. So there's a strong identification and connection with every soul. If it's still just goodness though, and it's not devotional, usually the last remaining desire or motivation is that they feel that they're doing something good, that they're being good people, and that they have knowledge. It says that the mode of goodness does two things. It conditions you, grabs you by knowledge and happiness. And so you in one sense you feel a slightly bit superior to these people that you're helping, because you have, they're suffering because they don't have this knowledge and this understanding, and you're being a good person by helping them. So there's a little bit of ego going on there, or you're feeling good about yourself about that. It's fair, and if it's really high level mode of goodness, it's very little of that, but there's something there. Okay? So those people also can, they want to help anybody they can, as much as they can. So now I want to take a look at sometimes when we think things are unconditional, that a couple of things can happen. So I said healthy unconditional love in this dimension has to have boundaries. We set some boundaries. And so one thing we want, if we can have overprotective parents or others, and we can be overprotective of somebody else. You want their welfare, therefore you want to take over their lives because you know what they should do and how they should do it and when they should do it. And so you end up, not respecting people's autonomy and agency. If you really care for a person, your autonomy and agency is very important. And we'll see that when we talk about how Krishna sees us. This is why Krishna doesn't force himself on us. He respects our autonomy and our agency. And so we can be overprotective or controlling because it's for your own good. And we're like, yeah, but is it really? If you take people's agency and autonomy away, is that really their welfare? Sometimes, because many times we learn from mistakes. So if you put them in a protective bubble and tell them exactly what to do, they don't learn anything. Right? And that's part of what life in this dimension is. That's why we have so many lives. It's not just to have a happy life. It's to grow and have something more deep. And so that can be a problem. And so that's a boundary on ourselves. If we have the love, we have to put a boundary on ourselves that we don't smother them and try to take away their autonomy. The other one is a protective one for the person who has love. And that's why I say wanting the welfare of the other prevents one from becoming either an enabler or a doormat. So, like with Krishna, it says that we want to please Krishna, and so sometimes, I mean, parents, you know, and other people who are your well wishers may not give you what you want. They give you what you need. If they give you advice you don't want to hear, they may not, give you what you want because that's not helpful for you. They might, so they may, you may have to displease them for their benefit. Right. And so again, you don't, not to the extent that you're destroying their autonomy and agency, but that, hey, this isn't right. And also you can become a doormat. And we'll look a little bit. The verse of the Shikshastakam that describes the highest level of unconditional love looks like Radharani is a doormat. Like, because you just want to please the other person so they can do anything, and because your love is unconditional, you don't react to that, so you become a doormat. And so His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I think really was quite genius when he talked about this. He said that if you really love somebody and you want their welfare, then you don't enable and allow bad behavior, because that's not good for them. So if they're mistreating you, that's not good for them. So he says, actually, you can protect yourself if you really think about the welfare of the other person. So maybe you have to take distance. Maybe you have to object. Maybe you have to do this stuff because it's not right that you treat people this way. This isn't healthy for you. And so so you still can remain their well wisher, even if you're, maybe you even have to, not deal with them anymore. So look, I don't want to tempt you because I care for you. I want to tempt you and to enable you to act in very, very negative ways. So you put boundaries. So sometimes unconditional love, people think, well, will make you be a doormat, or you have to enable them, give them what they want. They're an addict, and you give them what they're addicted to. But no, you're looking for their welfare, and that's what love means. So healthy unconditional love, and that doesn't make it conditional. See, because you're actually wanting their welfare. When you do something that enables them to do negative stuff, actually you're acting against their welfare. So healthy unconditional love has boundaries. Right? Okay. So now let's look at some of the differences that are in unconditional love and bhakti, in Krishna Prema. So the first and really important one is that there is no personal desire. There's only desire of pleasing and doing something for the other. And when we have love for Krishna, it's a mutual love. Krishna, we're going to talk a lot about how Krishna loves us already. The relationship is on from his side. And so if we come to the point where we love him, automatically it's mutual. And so this is the when you have if you have unconditional love or relatively unconditional love for somebody else who doesn't have that for you, then you have to have boundaries. But when you don't have that, when it's mutual, then boundaries aren't really necessary, because you're only looking for the welfare of each other. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And then it says yeah, there's no need for the boundaries, because there's no, it's it's perfect from both sides. It's reciprocated. It ultimately extends to everyone. Like for Krishna has certain boundaries when it's not mutual. So when Krishna loves all the souls first. All right. And so he has certain boundaries, especially, and particularly what he does is he respects the autonomy and the agency. Okay? And for us, not only does Krishna love us, but all the liberated devotees do love everybody. Right? Because it says it ultimately extends to everyone. So when you love Krishna and you know that Krishna loves everybody else, right? Uh, love me, love my dog. So if you see, you'll see others as dear to Krishna. And those who are liberated, then they see the other devotees as deeply connected with Krishna. So there's love for Krishna, love for one another, and it's a very powerful. So actually, right now we're being loved by all the liberated devotees in Krishna, although we're not, we haven't opened ourselves to receive it, and we're not reciprocating that right now. So we're going to read there's a little place in the Nectar of Devotion that talks about how the love extends. When you love Krishna, then eventually you love everybody. And the last thing that's really important, that's what we're going to talk a lot about, is it's something that's spontaneous. So when there's not a motivation, right? When it's just to please Krishna, when it's just looking for his welfare, then there is no at all. There's no desire of any kind, and so it just happens naturally. And I don't know. There's I think this can happen to us to a little degree. Um, like there was when we were living in Detroit, there was this little toddler who was really really cute and charming, and his parents would take him down to the corner store sometimes, and they wouldn't know any of the people there, and the people would see that little kid and they would just be wow, and they would want to buy him candy, right? Because it was like he's so cute, so you have to express it in some way, right? You just have to do something, right? It's like they would just have to do it, and they'd be so happy when he would eat it and be happy, so love for Krishna and even service can become more spontaneous. So we have to come onto the path. Prabhupada talks about this quite a bit. Even in the early days in 26 Second Avenue, he talked about how devotional service is spontaneous. And so sometimes, if we read the Nectar of Devotion, there's the Vaidhi Bhakti, or that in practice, and then there's Raganuga, but there's something else. And sometimes Prabhupada calls both, and Raganuga is spontaneous, but it's not the only kind of spontaneousness is there. So Prabhupada, one place he talks about spontaneity is at the stage of ruchi. It's the fourth verse of Shastakam, where there's just a real. So Prabhupada oftentimes instead of spontaneity, he talks taste. You have a taste for it, so you just want to do it. It's no longer, when we're following, when we're doing Vaidhi Bhakti, unspontaneous Bhakti, it's an obligation, and we understand it's for our good. We understand that Krishna is God, and we're supposed to be devotees. We're supposed to be his servants, and we think Krishna is a really good guy, and that's a good thing for us, and so we do it. But there's kind of that mediation of understanding there. The desire to serve doesn't leap from us, and so at the level of ruchi, it's starting to do that, and that deepens and deepens and deepens, and so it's that regard for the other, the desire for the welfare and happiness of the other, just springs forth, and it happens with Krishna because he's the all attractive, right? And so for the liberated souls, they can't just sit there; they have to. They have to express that love. And so you get little hints of that sometimes here on this plane where they just, oh wow, look at that, we have to do something. They weren't thinking, oh, this is a good thing to do, this is what I should do. He wasn't hungry, he wasn't looking like he was starved, he didn't need anything, but we have to, we can't just walk away with this feeling, we have to do something. We have to express it somehow. And so real love, prema, is completely spontaneous and very intense in a way that we can't conceive of, but it's incredibly intense. Okay. And so here's the place in the Nectar of Devotion that talks about how it grows. He says, our loving propensity expands just as a vibration of light or air expands. Right? Like you have a little beam of light, if it's not a laser, right, it begins to spread out. And he says, but we do not know where it ends. The nectar of devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. Says the nectar of devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being, because we see that connection, that they are also the beloved of Krishna. Now, again, if we're, even if we're, whether we're, sadhakas, or even if we're in perfection, when we're dealing with the non-liberated people, then there has to be boundaries. We do what's right for them, right? We have their welfare. And the same, and Krishna does the same thing for the people that don't have love of God. He has boundaries. But when there's the mutual love on both sides, then there's no boundaries. There's no consideration. And even when things look a little dicey, it's all the arrangement of Yoga Maya to deepen the love. So we'll talk about that when we hit the Radharani here. Okay, and then here this is interesting. This shows how it's mutual also. This is in the purport of Bhagavad Gita 9:29. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees, and this is a really powerful statement here. That this is especially in it's to a degree it's everywhere, but it's particularly true in Goloka Vrindavan. Becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. That's what he said. And so it's that Krishna feels the same thing. His love means he wants the welfare of the other. And as far as I can see, that even at the very highest levels of prema, there's a feeling on both sides. Krishna, the devotees feel completely indebted to Krishna, and because of his love, and he feels indebted to them. That's how he becomes the devotee of his devotees. So it's mutual and really powerful. He says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 468, the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees don't know anything else but me, and I don't know anyone else but them. So there's this deep connection on both sides. And again, this is from Bhagavad Gita 7:18, the purport. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord, because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. It's mutual. When we think of the Lord just in his kind of majestic form, and we think of him as he's the Lord and the master of everything. He's all omniscient and omnipotent, and are kind of acting on that basis, and that we're the servant. Then we don't understand. We're not feeling how it's reciprocal. We think that it's our business to serve Krishna, and Krishna's his business to receive that. But what Krishna really wants is also to enter into. He wants to love. He doesn't want to just be loved. He wants to love. That's his power, because love is the best. So why would he miss out? Right. So so we see all these parts where you can see it's reciprocal. And then from the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, says the point is that a pure devotee is so much absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord that he has no time to think of any benefit beyond his immediate engagement. This is spontaneity. Just as an ordinary materialistic businessman thinks of nothing else when he is absorbed in his business, a pure devotee, of course, the businessman is thinking about the payoff, though, to be honest. But a pure devotee, when engaged in the service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement. Because just like the people that were giving candy to that child, it just comes out of their hearts and they have to express it in some way. So they're not thinking of any payoff. Just that it's a relief to express that love. It has to come out. It has to be. You have to do something. You can't sit there with it. In the Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 17th verse in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back to him, into his kingdom than we can desire. I think to do that. I think this is something that we have to. This is something we're going to talk a lot about. How Krishna is actually not only loves us, but is so proactive with us. And there's a real important change of attitude. We think that God is, he's the supreme, he's the controller, he's the knower of everything. And if we want to be connected with him, we have to be really great, because that's what we see in this world, right? If you want to get the best job, if you want to meet the best people, you have to be extraordinary, right? But in the age of Kali, people are not extraordinary. And so Krishna actually says he helps us. And it's not that he's waiting and going, okay, you prove yourself to me. This is how humans act. You prove yourself to me. But he says he is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we are desiring to do so. He's already having love for us, even when we're not so great. And that's a really important point when we talk about how we can do this. And this is a really powerful purport here. And in first canto, chapter 16, it's the purport to text 26 through 30. Prabhupada says, only fools are ungrateful to their benefactors. The Lord, however, does not require benefit from anyone besides himself, because he is full in himself. So this is the one thing we have to understand about Krishna. He doesn't need our service and doesn't want our service. He's fine. He really just wants love. He says, because he is full in himself, still he feels benefited by the unalloyed services of his devotees. So their love touches his heart. He doesn't need whatever they do, but their love touches his heart. The Lord feels grateful to his devotees for such unsophisticated, unconditional services and tries to reciprocate it by rendering service. He feels indebted to them. Although the devotee also has no such desire in his heart. He's not asking for anything back. The transcendental service of the Lord is itself a transcendental benefit for the devotee, and therefore the devotee has nothing to expect from the Lord. So there's like this mutual feeling of indebtedness. And so Krishna has everything, he doesn't need anything, but when he feels that love, he feels it's so precious. And there's places where he says he can't repay it. So this is an amazing thing about that. And then here again, it shows his love even for those who are not interested in him presently. This is from the first canto, chapter 2 of 33. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. Right? So this is one thing that shows Krishna's affection for us. Right? Is that he's in the heart. We may not desire him to be there. We may not even desire him to exist. And so he's invisible in the heart. And what is he doing? He's always trying to direct us in the right direction. He's showing love. He's acting for our welfare, even when we're not interested. And then here's this is the expression of the highest level of Krishna Prema. This is the the last verse of the Shastakam, and it's spoken in the mood of Radha. It's spoken by Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Radharani, the one who has the greatest level of love. And this is the translation from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a little bit more elaborate than the one that's usually out there. So Prabhupada gave he kind of gave greater details. So she says in her voice, she says, "Let Krishna tightly embrace this maidservant, a Slishyava, who has fallen at his lotus feet, or let him trample me, Pinashtumam, or break my heart by never being visible to me. He is a Dabachi after all, the Lumpato, and can do whatever he likes. But still, he alone and no one else is the worshipable Lord of my heart." So this is what sounds like maybe Doormat City here. Right? But it's not, because Krishna loves her just as much, is what it comes down to. And but this is so this yeah this is but this is an expression of her love, that whatever he does, it doesn't matter. However he is, she just wants his welfare. But here she describes it. It's interesting. So we may think that she's that explains it deep, because she says he's a debauchee. He hangs out with Lumpato, means he hangs out with other women. And so so you think maybe there could be some jealousy there, right? And there's a place, right, in the also in the 10th canto, where Krishna is left for Mathura, and Radharani sees the bumblebee, and she thinks it's a messenger from Krishna from Mathura, and she's angry with him because Krishna, he's a great guy, but he has this weakness for girls. And now that he's in Mathura, in the big city, maybe he'll meet these really sophisticated women, and he'll forget about the little unsophisticated cowherd women. And so she's like she's a little angry with him, seemingly. And she's saying some things to the bumblebee to let Krishna know about this and that. And but what's really happening there is the main reason why she's upset with him is because she knows that the gopis give him the greatest happiness. And so if his weakness for other women takes him away from the gopis, that's not good for him. And so you can see this here in what she says. She says, if a gopi envious of me satisfies Krishna, and Krishna desires her, I shall not hesitate to go to her house and become her maidservant, for then my happiness will be awakened. So if somebody satisfies Krishna more than her, no problem. The only reason she's mad is if they don't satisfy them, Krishna, as much as her. Otherwise, she said, "I'll be the assistant. I'll help out with that." That shows her real mood. And then she says, well, this is similar. Let's look away. So here he says, if Krishna, attracted by the beauty of some other woman, wants to enjoy with her, but is unhappy because he cannot get to her, I fall down at her feet, catch her hand, and bring her to Krishna to engage her for his happiness. All right. So that's the situation. All right. So she only wants his happiness, and so there's no jealousy. There's nothing like that. So when she's mad at Krishna, it's because he's being silly. Because he has a weakness for women, he's not as happy as he should be. And she tries. Actually, the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in one of his works, he says that one of the reasons why the rasa dance took place, where Krishna's dancing with all the gopis, is that Radharani wanted to see Krishna with all the other gopis, because they have unique personalities, and so they bring a certain part of Krishna's personality out. So she wanted to see Krishna, to be able to understand Krishna better by seeing how he reacts to different personalities. So that was part of her joy. So then I just want to conclude here with actually maybe we can stop here. We'll start with this part where Prabhupada describes why Krishna exists as he does. He gives a real hint here. It's an early lecture in 26 Second Avenue, 1966. But I guess there's a few verses here, and we're getting late, so we'll save this for next time. And so if there's any if you have any comments or questions, please, this is a good time. We have 10 minutes or so to do that. Is it? It's as all clear as mud. So we'll anyway. The next time we'll start out with that. The Prabhupada gives an explanation about why he says that Krishna was initially was one because there were a lot of oneness people, amongst the counterculture, and so but he said Krishna was one, and he became many, and he quotes the Eko Bahusyam from the Upanishads. And he says he became, and then he asks why he did it, and he gives an explanation why Krishna becomes many, and uh, and it shows that because Krishna, he can be anything he wants. Like he's not in a world. The world is him, is in him. And he could, if he wanted to be different or wanted the world to be different, he could make it different instantaneously. He has that. He's because he's not only he's the existence of everything. Like there's the verse in the Gita where it says that Krishna is it's a 10:8, I guess. It's the first of the kind of the four kind of key verses of the Gita where he says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matasaram pravartate itima bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says not only is the source of everything, but he's the existence of everything. There's nothing, and Prabhupada says, we have the philosophy that achintya beta beta tattva. Everything, nothing. Prabhupada puts it this way: nothing is different from Krishna, but nothing is Krishna save and except his personal form. So all of existence is Krishna, and he can make it be whatever he wants. So if he wanted to change it, if he wanted to live in a different world, he could make a different world. If he wanted to be a different person, he could make it. And so what he has here, and especially in the spiritual world, it's like, and he's eternal. He has all that. So it's like if I ask you, what world would you like to have? Okay, well, if I make you have a snap decision, it won't be that great. But he's got eternity to figure it out, and plus he has all knowledge. So he has all the an unlimited power of creativity. He can think of unlimited possibilities. So if we were given that, even if we were given the right now, we don't have the power or the time, so we can't make the world what we want. And if we had the power and the time, or the power and the time, if we don't have the creativity. So Krishna has all those things. And so what he has created for himself with Krishna Prema is something that's dynamic. We'll find out how it's expanding and deepening. Sometimes we think of the spiritual world as, oh, it's very nice. We wake up every day and we play with Krishna and everything is peaceful. Uh-uh. uh-uh. Krishna, Prabhupada says, he says that Mother Yashoda never had a moment of peace when Krishna was a baby. And all these traumatic things are going on. Like, imagine, you've got this beautiful baby and this whirlwind demon, Trinavarta, comes, right? And it kicks up this whole dust storm, and they're not even sure whether Krishna is still there on the ground or not. He felt so heavy that she put him on the ground, and then this dust storm comes, and this whole tornado demon comes. And she and the other elderly gopis are crawling on the ground, trying to see if he's still there. So that's a panic. And then when he's not there, he's going to die. He's being taken away. That causes panic. But what happens is then the reunion becomes so much sweeter. Oh, now he's saved, and so you appreciate Krishna even more. Or when Kalia has him wrapped in his poisonous serpent wrapped in his coils, and everybody's passing out. Oh, but then he succeeds. So all the different adventures that happen are deepening the connection. It says that there's a steady love called a sthayi bhava, but then there's all these other impetuses that make and adventures that make the love continue to grow. So Krishna's love grows and the devotee's love grows. It's continues to blow everybody's mind. And that's why it's something that can be done eternally. That's why, Prabhupada talks about the pastimes being ever fresh. That's what he means. Because it's even though there's like they do a lot of the same things over and over again, but it's different every day because the love has grown. So it's just like it's fresh and new. And so it's this thing that's been increasing and deepening forever and will continue to do so. And we're invited to that, which is really cool. And so I think it's worth thinking about trying to understand it as much as we can. The intricacies are beyond, our station, but we can understand some of the basic parameters of how it operates, and then how it's possible for us to think about um, having our service become a little more spontaneous. Because otherwise, we can kind of do the program, which is just fine. We have our sadhana and do our practice, but the more that that's mediated kind of by our what happens in the beginning of our practice, and even up to the level of steadiness, there's a lot of wisdom and intelligence. The buddhi is happening, so we understand the benefit of it. We have some faith in it, and so we it's our duty, and so we do it, and we have some experience of Krishna from it, and we benefit from it, and so we do it. But we can, if we're not careful, get a little stale, and not and without encouraging the inner part of it. Sometimes I believe we emphasize the actions more than the internal part. Like in the Gita, where it says that Krishna says, "You offer me, a fruit, flower, water, or a leaf with a devotion." There's the internal part, and so sometimes we worry about, we think the service, the action is what's being done, and the action in Rupa Goswami's definition of bhakti, it's called Krishnanushilanam, and so it's the continuous actions directed towards Krishna. But there's three other internal parts that are mentioned. There's one external, that's the external one, and it's necessary if we really have any regard for Krishna, we'll want to do something. Prabhupada mentions, like, that simple sentiment without action doesn't mean anything. But it doesn't mean that sentiment is not worth anything. Other places he says that it's our feeling for Krishna that makes things move. And so the motivation is an internal connection. So Anyabilashta Shunya, what is our motivation? We can't be completely pure in our motivation, but what is our motivation? That's an internal thing. And it makes a difference. When people act towards us, their motivation matters with how much we appreciate what they're doing. If somebody's trying to manipulate us, we don't appreciate it so much. If somebody wants something from us, we don't appreciate it quite as much. So motivation matters. And then there's what's our level of faith? Jnana Karmadya Navatam, it says, what are the other things that they may compete with bhakti, other spiritual processes? Do we have faith that bhakti does everything? And that makes a difference in how Krishna receives that devotion. And then there's the anukulyena, our feeling towards Krishna. So in the commentaries of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Prabhupada summarized in the Nectar of Devotion, the Jiva Goswami says that the demons who come and try to kill Krishna in Vrindavan, they are performing an action directed towards Krishna that pleases him. Because it's easy. I mean, it's like when kids play, they imagine all kinds of things, right? Sometimes they imagine killing demons or dragons or doing some heroic things. Oh, here they come, the real demons. It makes it so much better. Wow, we don't have to imagine. And so Krishna's happy. They fight and they have a whole bunch of fun, and the kids have fun. So they're acting towards Krishna, and it's pleasing him. But because that's not what their objective is, it's not service. They have a negative attitude towards him. They want to kill him. So therefore, it's not devotion. So and as our devotion grows, our positive attitude towards Krishna grows. We just have to have the lowest limit is just to have not a negative attitude. We have to have just some positive towards Krishna to make it be devotional service. But for devotional service to deepen, that's supposed to increase. That feeling towards Krishna gets better and better and better and better. And that's an integral part of the devotional service. The service is the action, but the devotion, in some ways, is every bit or more important to the service. We know that even with the chanting of the holy name, right? That we can In the Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says something that really stunned me when I read it. Because he talks about the 11th offense. We each have the 10 offenses, and there's also an offense to be in it. Well, that one's a powerful one. He says that as long as that one's present, you can't get rid of the anarthas. And so he says there's three levels of that inattention. And one of them is like you're just not really into it. So he says you're reluctant to start chanting and you're happy when it's over. Or sometimes it's so you're kind of sleepy, but he says like that. And he says that you're just not eager to do it. And then the second one says you're distracted. And we're all familiar with that one. And then he says there's a third level of inattention where you're not reluctant and you're not distracted. But he says you don't have a real zest for it. He says you don't have anuraga, you don't have a real zest for it. And he says even if you chant 64 rounds a day with that level of pramada, then it still won't remove all the anarthas. Right? So there's a quality to it that's important. So even 64 rounds, and most of us are not doing that. If we don't have that zest for it, it's I mean, it works to some degree, but it limits its effectiveness. So I think we have a tendency sometimes to focus on the service aspect and not the devotional aspect and the measurables and that kind of stuff. And what happens, I mean, I know for myself, you just kind of keep thinking that, well, if I keep doing it, eventually the service adds up and something happens more. Or maybe at the time of death, it'll all come out. But I really think that neglecting the internal part bogs us down and slows us down and keeps us from entering into the higher levels of sadhana. And so I'm gonna propose some things that I've found and things tried to understand that maybe can help us with that. And I wish I could say I've gone all through that and now I'm some high level and can really tell you what to do. But maybe if I've come up with some things to help you, then you can come back and help me. This is what it feels like. Is don't forget Ogiri back here. Anyway, I'm still back here. All right. Well, anyway, it looks like our time is up, and we got three more sessions. If my brain can come up with enough material for three more, scheduled for three more. And what I'm going to do is I will send recordings, but I'm going to wait until all the four sessions are done. And instead of like sharing individual links to individual recordings, I'll just share a folder, a OneDrive folder with all the recordings in it. So I'll just share it one time and you'll have it all in one place. Sometimes previously I was sending, recordings for each session. So you get multiple emails or multiple things on WhatsApp and things, and you have to try to find the individual sessions and keep them straight. So it'll all be in one folder. So I think what I'm going to do with that.